Hello and welcome, everyone. We are live after the final siren of another massive week of footy, and really it was our first real week of carnage coming out of not the teams but the games. I'm your host and AFL Fantasy Fanatic, Tim Guest, and you can find me on socials at Tim Guest AU. But for those that listen back to the pod, it's Sunday the 14th of April, and of course you can find us on live on X and YouTube, so maybe jump on and join us live if you get a chance next time. And of course, thanks to all who have already sent in their questions, and make sure you comment on those platforms, the name of player you want discussed or a question you want answered, and if we don't cover it during the show, we'll discuss it with you before we wrap up. Of course, joining me as always is my co-host. It's Bails DT, mate. I know it was a bit of a roller coaster of a weekend for you. How are you feeling at the end of a massive week of footy?
Oh, mate, we were up, went back down to as low as we could get. I was off social media.
The toys were out of the pram
last night. No, I threw it out. I wasn't happy at all, and we sort of came back a bit today as well. So not too bad, mate. But good to see the Crows.
Exactly. I think that's the only bloody thing that saved it. Otherwise, I don't know what the hell would happen with you this weekend.
Yeah, you might not have had a co-host here tonight, but I'm here, so that's the main thing.
Well, after a massive weekend of footy, we needed to get a couple of really awesome guests on, so we've done that. Of course, everyone knows Jake from HatChat. Jake, mate, thanks for joining us. How was your weekend of footy?
Mate, thanks for having us on. I'm sure you guys would have seen that the Friday night game was about as good as the Friday night game we went and saw, except instead of Essendon being on the negative end, they ended up being on the positive end, which meant my boys ended up being absolutely slaughtered. So that wasn't a good start. Was at the Port Freo game yesterday, though, and that was an absolute belter. So that's 4 in a row Adelaide Oval games that went pretty well down to the wire. I'd say less than a goal if Cole Jordan Clark situation hadn't happened. But yeah, cracking weekend of footy and a nice little bounce back in the fantasy world too.
Yeah, nice way to ease back in after a gather round, making us all a little bit jealous that you got to see those games as well, mate. But let's turn to our next guest. Well, this guy's got a number one hat sitting on his head, and the overall winner from 2023. It's Darren Carr, or known as Wise Ocean Pods. Daz, mate, how are you?
I'm good, mate. Thanks for having me on. First time. Glad to be here.
How you feeling? Yeah, no, mate. It's great to have you on. How you feeling after your weekend of footy?
Yeah, not too bad. Let's just not talk about the Hawthorn because I'm pretty much done with them. But yeah, fantasy team's looking all right.
How's mate? Why don't we actually start with you, mate? In terms of going around and that, because I'm curious. After a number one hat from last year, how's 2024 shaping up? What was your score this week, and how you ranked so far?
So this week I scored a 1941, so I think pretty par, or maybe just a bit above par there. And I'm currently ranked at 2,998. So just inside the top three.
Not sitting too bad. Not sitting too bad after 5 rounds in. How are you feeling about it after last year?
Definitely not at the heights of last year. I think this time last year I was sitting 66, and was feeling pretty good. But had a pretty tough start this year with the mix up with the early buys and everything. So
it's certainly thrown a few curveballs, that's for sure, mate. What about you, Jake? How'd you score this week, mate? And how are you currently ranked?
Well, I scored more than the car winner in 2023. So that's all that matters to me. 1945, not by much. Pipped you out the post there, mates. A good round rank, 4,000 odd. Snuck me into the 10,000 for the first time this year. It was a pretty shocking start for the Donuts, but we've made ground week on week, and we're sitting around 7K now. So we keep doing that, keep knocking off 4,000 ranks every week. I'll be in a pretty good spot by mid-season buys, I think.
Good stuff, mate. Good stuff. What about you, Bars?
Come back to me in a sec. I'm just fixing just some audio stuff we got going on. So, mate, do you want to go through your week, mate?
Sure, mate. Sure. So I had an 1894, so a bit of a disappointing week for Guesty, but like I said, probably just a little bit below par. So I slipped about 300 spots to 5,612. But yeah, look, it was just a funny old week. Just, some of my I don't know, kind of those high-end mid-prices not really scoring well, like a Nick Martin and a Matt Crouch. But sliding back a little bit doesn't make me very happy at this stage of the year. But hopefully, I haven't checked how far I'm back off a hat chase, but I will do that soon. And hopefully I didn't slide too far back from that. But look, why don't we go back around with the coaches and find out everyone's +3, or Bales, are you ready to do your score, mate?
I think so. We just have typical YouTube dramas again. So I'll go through my score and rank. I had 1929, not too bad. Round rank of 6,194, which to my shock, I actually went up about 400 spots. So now up to 2,843. So from a what looked like a very bad week turned out to be not too bad.
Not too bad. Well, do you want to kick us up?
Hey, boys. Sorry, I just want to really quickly interrupt just because of the fact that it's been quite some time since I've been on a podcast and I've had the high score for the week, and this is getting recorded, and I just want this to be out there and people have a realisation and put some positivity to the name of the Donuts, and the Jake Rank's no longer, because there's a lot of people outside the Jake Rank.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Changing the name this, well, that's both you and Bails are changing your reputations this year as well. All right, Bails, +3, -3. Why don't you kick us off with that, mate?
All right, so +3 for me. I think it's got a. Oh, geez, it's actually a tough one. I'll give it to my captain, who I took as vice captain on Thursday night. Big Maxi Gawn, 1-49, saved me from an absolute shit show of a captain. If I would have had that, so yeah, very very thankful for that. -3 though. Yeah. It's got to go to 2 players. I normally give out 1, but it's got to go to 2. The Bont and Jordan Dawson combined for 113 points this week. That pretty much sums up everything. Just a fact on Bont, that was his removing 2020 with all the COVID stuff. That was his lowest score since 2017. Wow. So that just showed how bad that game was. So I had Lairdy for his worst score in like a decade, and now I've had Bont for his worst score in 7 years. So I just don't like these midfield primos, apparently. And then also with Jordan Dawson, we'll talk about the role change and that when we get to the Crows game, but that was just not good viewing at all. It actually took away from the Crows win, which is annoying. Just shows how much of a fantasy coach I am. So yeah, they've got to have the -3, and I'm sure we'll speak about them when we get to those. And games.
Pretty interesting considering both those players probably would have been ranked inside the top 4 by most coaches in the preseason in terms of how they were highest averaging players for the year. So yeah, for those two players not to be going very well, particularly knowing that a lot of coaches did bring them in this year, considering kind of we felt like we had a little bit of cash to burn, that's got to hurt. And of course, obviously, Bont was a pretty popular trading target last week as well. So there would have been plenty of people that traded into him that would have been really, really disappointed. Jake, mate, what about you? +3, -3?
Yeah, I could echo Bales' thoughts, but I never like to, although Gorney on Thursday night definitely made the weekend feel a lot more comfortable. So if I go across the team, I think who was most impressive, and for me, it was Super Sexy Flanders on debut for the Donuts. Looked particularly good. A soft Finn McGuinness tag, didn't even touch the points that we saw from Super Sexy. So a 125 and debut in the side was very, very good, and looking forward to the F1 of the year to keep doing those F1 kind of things. Similarly, Bont was a shocker. Very harsh to give it to an injured player on McKercher in 2, I would have thought. So we'll stick it with the Bont there, but I'm sure everyone's copped the old McKercher too, and we're all very lucky it's the best 18
exactly. Yeah. All right, Daz, what about you, mate?
Yeah, so my +3 would have to go to Rowan Marshall this week. I brought him in for Brodie Grundy.
Nice trade.
And yeah, obviously went to 138, so really happy with his debate. And yeah, probably would have kept him in if Gorney didn't go so well. So really happy with his trade in. But for my -3, again, could echo Bont. Really disappointed with that. But to be a bit different, I'll go Massimo. Just isn't getting it done. Needs to go, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think I would have to agree with that. He would have been my -3 if you hadn't had picked him. But yeah, I think a lot of coaches will be looking at getting off him this week if possible. But for me, +3, I'm going to give my +3 for Harry Sheasel. I mean, Jesus Christ, the 159 in that second last game. I mean, I know maybe there were some coaches out there that might have been relying on him as a bit of a captain option and would have been rewarded if that was the case. I mean, I ended up using Lockie Whitfield on a Saturday, but yeah, I mean, you can't turn down a 159 as a +3. And then -3, I mean, once again, it's not really giving it to Riley Sanders. It's really giving it to Bevo. But, I mean, what an absolute mare. I mean, the guy's had 3 All-Australians as subs in the last 2 weeks and then goes and subs Riley Sanders off at, what was it, just after halftime or something like that on a 39. So that will stump his cash generation. And probably if it wasn't for a McKercher going down with an injury, I think a lot of people would have been looking at jumping off Sanders this week if they hadn't already been considering it. All right, well, let's just do a quick whip around the Content Creators Cup before we get stuck into the game. So the AFL Fantasy Content Creators Cup, proudly brought to you by Infinite Wealth, making smarter financial decisions, where winning coaches will get $5,000 for their favourite charity. And just a reminder, there's something special for every coach available too. So head across to infinitewealth.com.au/AFL Fantasy to claim your free financial freedom masterclass and a stack of tools and resources to help you make smarter financial decisions. So things like if you have a mortgage, I'll teach you how to pay it off up to 3 times faster without paying a single cent extra. If you're paying too much in tax, then I can teach you how to save thousands each year. And if you're someone who's committed to being financially free, then I can teach you how I bought 13 properties by the age of 27 and starting off with nothing. So that's infinitewealth.com.au/AFL Fantasy. Head across and grab yours now. So Bails, why don't I just turn to you, mate? Let's head us up. How did you go this week in the Content Creators Cup?
We can move on.
So you had a loss to Mitch. What was it, about 50 points or something along those lines?
58 points, but who's counting?
Was Bond the difference, mate? Yeah, Bond was the difference.
Literally, Bond versus Butters became the one. What was it? 60 points or something in the end difference? Yeah. So that cost me.
Well, even though I had a poor score this week, I had a win as well. But then again, I was going up against Calvinator, so hopefully he's playing me into form. But a big shout out to Jeppa, who scored a massive 66 this week. So a massive week from him. But Warney beat John Harmey. Jeppa beat Statesman. Luke beat Rids. Holmesy beat Nathan from HatChat. Jake, you beat Louis, mate. Sanch beat Roy. Then Mini Monk beat Hef, who, on that note, Mini Monk is now the only undefeated coach in the Content Creators Cup. Shock horror, if anyone was surprised about that. And then MJ took out DC this week, only just. So there's some pretty decent scores in the Content Creators Cup. But let's turn our attention to the games and get stuck into the first game in the round. I'd rather forget that this happened, considering I don't have Maxi Gawn in my side. But Melbourne were defeated by Brisbane by 22 points at the MCG. For those, including coaches like me, who traded out Salem this week, would have been pretty happy knowing that they did that. They went inside the first 5 to 7 minutes of the game. He did his hammy and came off on a 5. And of course, he was then replaced by Taj Woden as the stub. And then James Tunstall was unused as the sub for Brisbane.
I wonder if that was the first unused sub of the season. That doesn't normally happen. Well, Chris Scott loves subbing players in with like 70 seconds to go. So, but there you go. Anyway, run through some players just quick here, then we'll discuss a couple further. So anyone that's looking at McCluggage, you got a 101, so not too bad from him there. Lockie Neal with an 83. He's going to be considering dropping in price still, so maybe one to keep an eye on. Jack Belling's got a 72, which is okay if you did still have him, but obviously you're going to be moving him on heading into his bye this week. Blake Howes with a 68 was good from him heading into his bye. A lot of people jumped off him this week, but if you did hold the 68, you'd be pretty happy with go up a bit in price there. Chris Petrarca, 64, was also very bad, along with his compatriot Clayton Oliver, who played off half-back, which was very interesting. I don't think they're going to be doing that again. He had surgery as well, so he will be potentially back after the bye, but might miss a week or two potentially. But we'll talk through a couple of players. So the first one I wanted to get your thoughts on, Jake, is your namesake, Josh Dunkley. Is he an option? Another 123, going very nicely. He's a bit more expensive now, but can coaches jump on him if they like what they see?
Sorry, mate. Did you throw that my way? I think I lost you for 13 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
Just the usual, kind of stuff. I heard nothing but the finish of that sentence. So, Josh Dunkley. Oh, of course, mate. No doubt about it. He's, Josh Dunkley by name, Josh Dunkley by nature. It's the shaved head, I reckon. He's certainly come out and about the last few weeks and has absolutely looked back his old self. It's just an interesting mix, right? We're seeing that down trading from Lockie Neal, but tons pretty well since opening round. Looking like an absolute jet once again. So he's just getting expensive. That's the main issue. He's almost $1 million. So.
So is it too late, do you think, to jump on him? Are you probably looking at, well, I'm sure we'll speak about a bloke from Carlton that had a pretty decent week on the weekend. Is he too expensive, or do you think it's still a play to go for him?
I think I've learned in the past few years that jumping all the way up, we look at the Bonds and the Dawsons this week. It's just pretty hard to do. It's hard to spend that kind of cash, especially when you're probably paying up. A lot of people will be looking to get Will Graham in this week. To find the cash to be able to get yourself all the way up is just unlikely. I think there's a lot of guys, as you've just alluded to there, that are probably 100K cheaper that have a lot of excitement about them. You go a bit cheaper again and you'll start looking at a Hume McCluggage. I'd love to have him on my side. I wouldn't shirk anyone away from doing it, but it's just a lot of cash and you've got to remember what you could be doing with the other side of that trade.
Yeah, exactly right. Dane Zorko, Darren, another good score again, 117, looking really, really good off that half-back line. What are your thoughts of him as an option? I guess we'd like him as an option, but can you do it with the risk?
Yeah, it certainly is a risk, isn't it? Where there's obviously 35 age and a long history of hamstrings, and it's one for the brave for sure. But he's been going at a pretty good tick over the month of the season, so definitely an option. Definitely top 6 forwards. Even one that I may even have to bring in this week, just because I don't think I have the cash to get up to a Flanders or even a Walsh at this point in time. So it's a tricky one for me. If he stays in this half-back role, I would love it. But I'm just concerned with McKenna coming back this week, whether he gets pushed forward again, as we saw in the first couple of games of the season.
Yeah. No, these are a good point, and I'm just, that the injury risk is definitely something I'm a little bit worried about there. Beautiful, Tim. We'll move on to, unfortunately, Friday night.
Western Bulldogs defeated by Essendon by 29 points at Marvel Stadium. So while you thought there may have been some injuries with those scores, there wasn't. Although, Jesus, what happened with Libba, hey? That was a bit interesting. Obviously, he's been put into concussion. Yeah, no, it was pretty sickening to watch, but been put into concussion protocols now. Bailey Dale, I mean, the other thing that was sickening about this was seeing Bailey Dale named as the sub, another All-Australian, who then went on to replace Riley Sanders in the third term. And as we all probably saw on X, didn't look like Riley was too happy about that either. And then, of course, Nick Hind replaced Jai Menzies at three-quarter time.
Yeah. Well, Jake, I'll hand to you, mate. If there's, I don't know if you want to go on to like a sort of explains 2 things for the Dogs. Bont was bad, Sanders was bad, English was bad. A lot of popular players. What are your thoughts with what happened on Friday night, mate?
Honestly, inexplicable. I think there's a lot of Bevo chatter. I think the old ex hoaxes were going around. Someone saying the old fake Tom Brown account saying that Bevo was going to be sacked this morning. All of those kind of things. But as a Doggies fan, I think we saw the sack Hinkley crowd at the Oval, and I think I'm definitely in the sack Bevo space. We're just trying too many things. We've got a cracking list. There's obviously something going on behind the scenes to have 3 All-Australians sitting as a sub at some point within the first 5 games of the year. It just doesn't make a heap of sense to me. Some of the things we're seeing just don't check out. It's just simply not good enough. The Bont, I don't know. It just kind of didn't look like himself. It's probably the best way to put it. I don't know that we'd say that he was bevoed by any way, shape or form. Did have a lot of the ball in the front half, but he does tend to anyway. Rest forward does tend to anyway. I just think the Doggies didn't perform. And just like a couple of the big players in the comp, when the team doesn't perform, that largely rests on the back of 1 or 2 players. And I have a sneaking suspicion that maybe it just wasn't the Bont's night. With all this other stuff going on behind the scenes, it's definitely a bit of a concern moving forward. But low-scoring game by the Dogs too. I haven't got the exact numbers, but across the board, you don't see us very often with only the 1 ton. Timmy English struggled. It was just not a good game, quite frankly.
Yeah, exactly. The other one I was going to ask you about actually was Riley Sanders. Obviously, we saw that he wasn't very happy, and if he keeps being maybe treated like that, he might actually go to Tassie in a couple of years' time. But mate, is he a trade out because of that? I guess now that risk of him being subbed out really any moment, and it sounded like Bevo didn't really say that it's not going to happen in the future. Like he was saying that like Riley understands that he's going to be subbed out of games and stuff. So it sounded like that could be a bit of a regular occurrence. So is he a trade out?
Not this week. I think most people are going to have McKercher. If you're rolling McKercher and Sanders, you're going to get to absolutely no one. So you just probably have to cop Sanders for another week, especially for the best 18. If you've got rid of, if you for whatever reason don't have McKercher, then potentially you could look at doing it. But I don't think there's enough of a worry. He's still got the ceiling. Break even's manageable enough, albeit a little bit less cash gen than I'd like to have seen. So yeah, not this week for mine.
Yeah. Darren or Tim, do you boys want to sort of chime in with any of those Dogs guys at all? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can jump in. Just on the Sanders thing, I'm in the same book. He's a break even at 50. I think that's plenty. We've shown the capacity to go 90 plus, and he could kickstart his cash generation if he gets a full game, right? So, especially up against St Kilda this week. So I think he could go to have a full game after the media sort of got into Western Bulldogs about him being sub. So I'd expect him to play a full game and probably put up a 90 plus and bounce back really hard.
I think I just want to say, like, I mean, everyone can potentially be in different situations. So if you are potentially in a situation where you can get to someone, and Sanders, getting, I mean, obviously he's going to be saved this week primarily by McKercher. But if there is a play to trade him out, right? If you can get to someone, you certainly can trade him out. But I think most coaches will be in the boat, same boat as Darren and Jake.
Yeah, well, because I was asking that as well, because I would actually have enough money to go up to Walsh by doing McKercher down and then up. So that could be something I'd have a look at. But we'll have a week to decide that. Just with some other players, just quickly touch on from that game in terms of scores. Obviously, Tim English had a really poor game with only 68. But, well, Jake, just quickly on English, and before we move on to the next game, is there a bit of a worry? Like, Sam Darcy's looking really good for you guys. So is that a worry for English moving forward?
I mean, in theory, low hit-outs game. I mean, I think it is a worry for English moving forward, only on the premise that he was priced at, the highest price in the game at the start of the year. And I'm sure you were probably on a pod or two with me, Bails, where I said that Marshall would have been my pick over English at the start of this season for that exact reason. I just don't think the heights would be able to be lived up to, let alone with Sam Darcy in the side. I think English at this point might get to a point where he's cheap enough, where you're effectively moving Cherry, Xeri sideways to him, at which point I'd be pretty comfortable. But at the price that he's at, you wouldn't be too happy as an owner, unfortunately.
Yep. Yeah, exactly right. Nick Martin as well got an 85. Bit of an odd game. So, but 85 is, I guess, okay enough. We probably want a bit more. Merritt got a 104, which was solid enough as well for owners. Darren, I know you're an owner of him as well. Jack McRae 78. Still just one, I guess, to keep an eye on with the doggies moving pieces. Maybe not. We're definitely not jumping on yet. And then Darcy Parish got a 68. He's going to be very cheap at some point to potentially jump on in the future. Beautiful, Tim. We'll move on to Saturday.
All right. Well, the GWS Giants defeated St Kilda by 1 point at Monica Roval. A bunch of injuries to come out of this. So Sam Taylor was concussed. Canelio hurt his knee, although while there was some concerns that it might have been an ACL or something like that, it looks fairly minor. I think there's some talk about 4 weeks. Josh Kelly took a bit of a beating to the ribs there. Not sure how that's going to pan out. There was something about Briggs doing his shoulder, or not doing his shoulder, but injuring his shoulder. So nothing too much, though, so it can't have been too serious. And once again, Max King hurt his knee there, but once again, apparently it was fairly minor, so we'll see what comes out of that. In terms of subs, Peatling was subbed on for Sam Taylor in the first quarter, and Hugo Garcia came on for Dan Butler in the third quarter. But yeah, over you, Jock Bales, for the scores.
Beautiful. So just run through a couple of scores quickly here. So Brad Hill, 150. Beautiful for drafts if anyone's owning him out there. Lockie Ash, after a few really bad weeks, got a 99. So I guess one to just maybe pencil on the watch list potentially is someone that you could be really, really cheap there. Desai Wanganeen Miller got a 90. So only 19 touches, but it was still good to see him get to at least a solid enough score there. Marcus Windhager got an 82 as well. Harvey Thomas bounced back with a good game of 81. Good to get some more cash gen from him. Riley Bonner with an 80 as well was okay, solid enough against a pretty restrictive Giants side there. Jack Sinclair continues to drop only the 74 and played 3 different positions on the weekend. So something to watch. I don't think we're jumping on him yet. Tom Green, really poor game again from him with just a 72. But Darcy Wilson had a good game with 70 points there. But I'll turn over to Jake, mate. You obviously mentioned about Ron Marshall. Is he a priority trading? Because he's now gone back-to-back, 130s or whatever it is. And I guess people that got Sherry, if they've got the luxury of moving up to him, could do that. But maybe someone like, Gawn, you're not trading out, but maybe Grundy, if you still got him, another ruck. Is there a play where you're sort of looking at bringing him in, or do you think if you've got a Sherry, you're waiting for a little bit?
I think Sherry's still price per dollar is still performing better than him. Simple as that. If you're running Gawn and Sherry, absolutely not. If you held Grundy through his bye, my first question is why? But if you did, I suppose you could absolutely make that trade. And if you're one of the some other person that's running anyone else, you could absolutely look at it. I think English to Marshall is a bit too sideways. There probably is across the rest of the season, maybe 5 or 10 points between them. So you'd be in a really luxury position when you're considering them a Kircher and those kind of guys. So I don't think you probably do, unless you are one of the unicorns out there that has some odd ruck combination.
Yeah, exactly. But no, he's looked amazing last 2 weeks, and why would you bring Tom Campbell in the way he's playing at the moment? Darren, Jack Steele, 122. Is it the simplest to say, like, if you don't have him, do you have to jump on him because he's just pumping out 120s for fun at the moment?
He certainly is, and I wish I started with him because he's just gone back to his 2021 form, or 2022, I think it was, where he just doesn't seem to want to drop below 120 at this point in time. Putting up those high 20 disposals, loves the cuddle, and is even spreading for all those marks. So, which is something I wasn't sort of expecting this season with a different game style. So, if you can get him in, absolutely is going to be around that top 8 mid, and is a beautiful, beautiful player. So, I'll definitely be getting in him.
Yeah, he's looked fantastic, and I'm one happy man with Jack Steele, and I'm sure Mitch is as well, Jake.
Absolutely.
Tim, we'll move on to the game of the round.
Oh, really? Carlton defeated by Adelaide by 2 points at Marvel Stadium. So there's some late changes in this game with Adam Chera being withdrawn from the side with a hamstring strain and being replaced by Mark Petnet. Then also Adam Sand went down with a hamstring, as well as McGovern in the late stages of the game. And then Jack Carroll came on for Adam Sard in the second quarter, and Sam Berry came on for Lachlan Gallant in the fourth quarter. And the thing probably to be aware of out of this game is that Matty Crouch has been offered 1 week by the MRO for that high bump on who was it on?
Jack Carroll. Yeah, unfortunate for Crouchy. And Tim, I'll ask you: is he's out for a week? Is he a trade? Best 18. That's probably the bit of a spanner.
Well, look, I don't know. I haven't really thought about it for all coaches, but for me, no, he's not a trade out. I'm just going to sit him on the bench for 1 week. For me, I'm going to go down Massimo, and I can put money on top of Mass to get McKercher up to Sammy Walsh, which, while I haven't really looked at trades too much, considering the time it is, that looks like a pretty tasty trade. So it leaves me with exactly $0 in the bank. So it seems like it's all meant to happen as well. Crouch won't be out for me. I think maybe there might be some coaches out there that might tend to do the same, but it depends on each coach's side. I mean, he was technically a med pricer, right? So we were going to get off him at some point. So if he's out, this is also an opportunity to jump off him. And, there's probably a bit of concerns about what's going to happen in that Adelaide midfield. Bales, you're probably the one to talk about it being the Adelaide guy, but it looked like there was some fairly big changes in that Adelaide midfield on Saturday night there. So looked like Rochelle was running a lot more through that midfield in the early stages of the game. Saligo was obviously in there as well as who am I thinking? Who am I forgetting about? Rankin as well. So it looked like a fairly big change to kind of the way that they were mixing up that midfield. I don't remember the CBAs, but maybe actually you can tell us, mate.
Yep, so got them up here. So CBAs, there was 29, 30. There was 33 for the game. Saligo 22, Rankin 20, Crouch 18, Dawson and Laird 16 each. And then you had Berry with 5 and Rochelle with 2. But Berry, when he was on, was in the midfield. So, I don't get wrong. As a Crows fan, I'm very happy with the win, but I think there's still a few mistakes in that side. And Dawson's got to be one of them back in the midfield because he only scored 60 points. And I'm a bit concerned for his role moving forward. Darren, I know you're not a Dawson owner, but for those Dawson owners out there, is this a big concern for you? Is this something a bit different where you'd be happy to jump off a Primo, or are you maybe giving him another week just to see how it goes with Crouch maybe out for this week?
I'd definitely be holding this week given that Crouch is out. Obviously, that should bump his CBAs back up again and hopefully can put up a respectable score, but it is a concern. Do I think long-term Dawson's going to be out of that midfield? I don't think so. I think it's just something they're doing at the moment to give them some momentum into the season. Obviously, they've started pretty poorly, and obviously what they did on the weekend worked to get the win. So I still wouldn't be trading out of him just yet. And he actually comes up on a pretty good run starting this week. So up against Essendon and North in the next 2. So I think he can go pretty big in those 2.
Yeah. I think the only flag for Dawson this week is maybe Durham goes to him. He did a pretty good job on Friday night, so that's my only flag. And I guess Hewitt was tagging him. Dawson only missed one CBA in the first quarter, then went to playing forward most of the game. So I don't know if that was because he was getting tagged. Maybe they were just trying something different. But I guess something to maybe assess next week. But Tim, obviously you mentioned before about Big Walshy. But I'll ask Jake about Sam Walsh. 145, first game back. Like he loves coming back and putting up a big score for us. He's an option, isn't he? Under 900k.
Oh, he's absolutely an option. I mean, 34 touches, 13 tackles, probably not sustainable, I would suggest. But he certainly looks in good nick. Pretty daunting, though. I have a very, very poor track record of bringing in players off an injury, so I've stayed very clear. But I can see why a lot of people would do it. And there's not really a knock on it other than the potential injury risk that we've seen across his career. So, I mean, we're playing in the classic form where I suppose if he does get injured in 2 weeks, you can trade out of him, but it's certainly not ideal. But at his price point and with scoring like that, I'm not brave enough to talk anyone out of it.
Yeah, no, definitely someone I and many coaches should be looking at this week. My boy Laddie, poor game for 75. I have to chat with him on Wednesday and say, mate, what wasn't up to the usual standards from Laddie, but I'm sure he'll bounce back with a big game there. Crouch got the 86 as well. Zach Williams was good to see him bounce back with a pretty good score of 91, but again, did have a quite a second half, but it was sort of a bit of a different game in the second half compared to the first half. So, and then Rankin, Tim, 106. Any interest from you? Played a lot of midfield, looked pretty good.
Yeah, I know, but
or do you want to see another week?
Oh, mate, I probably want to. Well, I don't know. It's that midfield mix is so subject to change, I think, at the moment. So yeah, I don't know. I think I'm probably right now. I mean, obviously, I'm trying to look at big dogs in the midfield. I know we've got obviously a couple of our players going back after next week, so I think the midfield's where you want to be looking at the moment rather than up forward. And with so many things changing in that Adelaide midfield, it's probably not someone I'm paying too much attention to. Although there was one guy that we did miss in the Essendon game that I've just tweeted in the questions because I do want to talk about him as well as being a kind of mid-pricer that showed some real promise on the weekend.
Yeah, cool. No, we'll definitely touch back on him after. Jake, you were going to say something?
Yeah, early doors Rankin's coming in for me, but it's the same mention. I think a forward kind of price around 700k. We could be sneaking in a man from the Bombers as well, but I think they're both very good options in what's a really light forward line at the moment.
Yeah, beautiful. Tim, we'll move on to the Saturday night game.
All right, so we are talking, Gold Coast defeated Hawthorn by 53 points. Just trying to figure out where I was up to there. A couple of injuries here. So Rosas Jr., bit of something going on with his hammy there. We'll see what comes out of that. Subs, Swallow replaced Rosas during the third quarter, and Henry Huswaite came on for Cam McKenzie at halftime.
Yeah, beautiful. So a lot of relevant players here from the Gold Coast, which we'll discuss. But Carl Amon must be your favourite player, Tim. Back-to-back tons. Unbelievable. And I know you're not the only person that jumped off him as well. So just, bloody Amon. Closey, another good game. 94, looks really, really good as well. He's
on the bench.
Looking really confident at the level. I know a lot of people ain't on the bench. Of course, Mitch had him on field. Yeah, thanks, Mitch. Toot Miller, 94 as well. Solid enough. I don't know if he's going to be that guy we want this year because there's another midfielder that we'll speak about in a set that could be that option there. Lukosius, good score with 89. An option there to look at. I just worry with the conditions up there, especially with the Darwin games coming up for him. Sicily, 71. Another poor score. I don't know why Hawthorn don't bring another key defender to free him up as that intercepting defender, but just one to keep an eye on. Massimo, another one, playing at a position on a wing. Another not a great score, so he's probably got to go for all of us that own him there. But the three players I want... Oh, and then John, you can... Bloody hell. If anyone still has him, if you thought it couldn't get any worse, unfortunately it did. 40 points on the weekend. And
Urban Garuda, if you're listening to this, my friend, trade him.
No.
I told you on the hill last week to get rid of him, and he said, he looked less shit this week. Well, guess what? He looked a lot more shit this week. So, Urban, get him out your side.
Yeah, not great. Just a really poor start to the year for him. Hopefully, Will Day coming back can help him out there. And then Sam Flanagan as well, 125. A lot of people brought him in this week, and for good reason. He looked fantastic, even with a little bit of Finn McGuinness attention at times. just the thirst for the footy to hit for Flanders is so evident, and he just wants the ball. So he's going to be a guy, if you don't have, you got to jump on, I think. But Will Graham, Jake, 104, looked really, really good again. Back-to-back weeks of, obviously got the score was there this week with the tackles. I assume he's probably going to be one of the most trading players this week. Are you going to be jumping on him?
He is in at the moment. It is a bit daunting, 14 disposals, 14 tackles. Again, not sustainable, but a minus 29 break even, that has me sewn up every single day. So my big thing for people is if you're going McKercher to Graham, which I think is probably very likely, I still don't know that I'll be running him on field. I'd probably find a way to move him to your bench. I don't think that scoring sustainable based on what we've seen with his ability to get on the ball, albeit a couple of games in the NT coming up, depending how wet it is up there. A little cuddle's not going to be doing things in a negative light for him. But I wouldn't be running him on field.
Yeah, I guess those coaches who've got Jeremy Sharp on the bench can now swing him onto the field and downgrade. So I think that's the move there. And then the other player we're going to touch on, Noah Anderson, Darren, 154. Obviously, our friend Jepper of the Plus Six Pod brought him in and put him captain as well, which was a fantastic call. And a few people did that as well. 154, we've seen promise from him, but it does look like this year, to start the year at least, he looks like that main guy in there and could be an option for us. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, he's definitely been flying under the radar. We've always been sort of considering Took and Rao, and he's just been flying under the radar there, and obviously put up the big ceiling score of 154 this week. Just was driving me insane watching this game as a Hawthorn supporter. It was just everywhere, and we were just giving him no attention, not respecting how damaging he was being. So I actually had to turn it off halfway through this game because I just couldn't stand watching it anymore. But yeah, he's a great fantasy player, and he could be he's really cheap for what he's actually capable of doing, under $1 million. So break even of 85 now, and he's actually got a pretty good run coming up. As you said, a couple of them are in Darwin, which is a bit of a flag, but it can be pretty dewy and it can be quite fantasy friendly for an inside midfielder. So he's a great option.
Yeah, exactly. He looked very good. Beautiful. Tim, we'll move on to the other Saturday night game, which is a very close game.
Another close game, yeah. Port Adelaide defeated Fremantle by 3 points at Adelaide Oval. In terms of injuries, Zerk Thatcher hurt his right shoulder there. And then in terms of subs, Jackson Mead replaced Jed McAtee at three-quarter time, and Neil Erasmus replaced Jaeger O'Meara in the fourth quarter.
And for all those owners of Zach Butters as well, he is not suspended. That's right. Much to my annoyance. Of course, the Brownlow favourite doesn't get suspended, but Matt Crouch, who was never in the Brownlow, gets suspended. So
different hits, mate. Move on.
Move on. That was Sanchez. I love it. But it was also the most South Australian thing I've ever heard, where a Crow supporter just has one eye, and the Port supporter would have told you the exact same thing if it was on the other foot.
Yeah. So. Well, just quickly, does anyone actually think you should have got a week? Just wanted to know. Well, you're an owner, Tim. So
yeah, exactly. I brought him in this week as well.
I'm also an owner, so I say no.
Jake, you're not an owner.
I'll say yes. Just so the South Australians will come at me this week. So.
Yeah, beautiful. No, should have been suspended, but there you go. But no, we'll go through the players this game. Of course, Ollie Wines, 106. Yeah. He does it all when we don't have him. Luke Ryan, 105. I'm a big fan of Luke Ryan as an option. I'm going to bring him in at some point. He was good once again. Hayden Young, really good second and third quarter. First and last quarter were pretty quiet, but still 102. Definitely take that every day of the week. Rosie, another ton. Very, very happy with him there. Andrew Brayshaw, who I think Roy brought him in this week and looked like a really good option, but another poor score from him, unfortunately, with just a 78, no marks. I don't know if he copped any attention in this game at all, but yeah, not a good score from him. Jackson, 74. Tim, I know you're an owner. Are you looking at trading him out this week with Darcy come back, or are you going to assess in another week?
Yeah, no, I'm going to assess in a week just because he's got the Eagles this week. I have a funny feeling that the whole plan was to kind of ease Darcy in with the Eagles. I imagine that he'll probably be eased in quite gently as well. And I think Luke Jackson will probably still take the majority of the ruck duties. And even if not, I mean, forwards tend to score pretty well against the Eagles as well. So yeah, no, he'll stay in for one more week for me, but then I'll be getting off him after that.
Yeah. Not Connor Rosie. Caleb Sarong, 92 as well. Back-to-back scores under 100. So I guess that the Bont and Dawson owners, like myself, only both, didn't get hurt too much from Green and Sarong this week. Jordan Clark, 66. Poor score from him, but tough match against Port. I'm sure he'll bounce back. Sharp as well got a 65. Was solid enough as our rookie on field. And then Fife got a 62 as well. Jake or Darren, either one of you can go. Anyone you want to quickly touch on before we move on to the Sunday games? Jake?
Not too fantasy relevant, but Fife was pretty disappointing, obviously, 62. His break even is 66, I believe, so it's pretty much time for him to move on. He's done his job where he's made 80k, so it's not been a great selection, but could you hold him this week against West Coast Eagles? Does he bounce back, or does he get rested this week? Is my only concern. Is the only question I would phrase.
Yeah, exactly. That could be a concern. Jake, was there anyone you want to quickly touch on?
No, I just think across the board, again, poor restrictive matchups, so don't be thinking into things too much. The 92 from Sarong, 78 for Andy Brayshaw. I don't think it's particularly surprising. And I also just want to mention that Kane Farrell did exactly what I expected Kane Farrell to do after the first 3 weeks, so I'm still glad I didn't bring him in. But that's going to be a yo-yo for anyone that did jump on, and it's going to keep me tempted all season long if that keeps up.
Yeah, very, very frustrating. And then Butters, I didn't actually mention he got a 113. So good score for those people that brought him in this week. And but beautiful. Move on to the Sunday games.
Well, before we turn our attention to the Sunday games, just a reminder, if you're joining us live on X or YouTube, let us know your questions by commenting on those platforms, and we'll run through them before we finish off tonight. But getting into the Sunday games now, Geelong defeated North by 75 points at GMHBA Stadium. A couple of late changes there with Tom Hawkins being replaced in the side by Shannon Neal. And then McKercher, obviously, as we know, was taken to hospital with that injury to his ribs. And I mean, look, I want to talk to the boys about what kind of impact we think that might have on maybe a Zach Fisher. I mean, he had a pretty slow start to that game. Do we think that Fisher's now going to get a little bit more of the ball on that half back line now that McKercher's out for a bit? But in terms of subs, it's pretty shitty to see Jai Clark was subbed out, was the sub and replaced Mark Bitcarves in the fourth quarter. What did he end up scoring? It was like a 2 or something, or a 5 or something.
Yeah,
like that.
2. Him and McKercher combining for a total of 1 tackle.
But I mean, I don't know. Coaches have still got Charlie Lazaro. He was obviously named as the sub, but it would have been good to see him come back into sides. If you've got coaches, have him sitting on the bench there.
Yep, exactly. Normally I'd run to the scores, but I've got to start off with one. I can just hear that Vine thing, like, that's why he's the GOAT. And I could hear that for Harry Sheasel. 159 points. Has not gone below 120 this season. He's just on a different level. But, Darren, he's coming up against your Hawks this week. I can hear the Jaws, like the traders with Jaws theme sort of now. Is Finn McGuinness, do you reckon he's going to go to Sheasel this week?
There's no doubt in my mind he's going to be on him 100% of the time. He ain't going to leave his side. So that definitely would be considering him my captain options this week. But I still think he can put up a respectable score.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he'll get hopefully some kickouts. But yeah, don't captain in this week, people. He'll probably get the tag. Tristan Sherry, 107. Another good score from him. Keeps ticking along with that cash gen and really good scores. LDU, 104. That was a good score. Jake, do you own him still, or do you trade him?
I do own him, and it was a good score, but there was a massive third and then pretty quiet last. I think he had 2 +6s over the 14 final minutes that I watched, which was pretty frustrating. So, yeah, it's not been a great watch, but he's doing enough to hold his spot at this stage.
Yeah. Max Holmes, 99, was solid again. Don't know if he's quite an option for us in Classic, but draft be a good score for that there. Zach Fisher, 82. Just a couple of 80s in a row, which is good. He's been pretty good. He's gone over 70 in all but one game. So he's been solid enough. Obviously, it'll just be interesting to see what that looks like moving forward. Jake, do you think that he'll get more of the ball with McKercher out there?
I hope so. He's been on a kind of tentative trade-out list of, top 3-4 priorities. But he gets the extra week. Obviously, he'll grab the DPP, which will be handy. He did look all right to finish that game. I wouldn't be holding my breath on it, but I'd definitely be giving him the week to see how that pans out.
Yeah. Tom Stewart, 80. I'm sure owners will have him from on. Really, besides that Crows game where we just love kicking it to him, he hasn't really done a great deal outside that. So just maybe something to note for
what's the average?
We've got him there. What is he averaging? I don't know. I have to get that up, actually.
He's averaging 94.4. So once again, Tommy Stewart just manages to do what he always does, really, doesn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Ollie Dempsey, after a 2-point first quarter, sort of seems like two points is the flavour of sort of this game at the moment. But he got to a 70 in the end, which was solid enough, and I think he still find a playing field for the next few games. But he has got a couple of tricky games, starting with Brisbane at the Gabba this week. Duncan only 69 there. Charlie Coleman, 69. Not bad for those coaches that jumped on him with some cash gen there as well. And Lazaro got the 66 as well. So, but final player I want to discuss, Blake Drury, Tim. Probably almost my least favourite player in the comp, just because of brought him in last year and he was crap. This year, don't have him, 101. Are you looking at bringing him in this week, or do you think is Will Graham for a little bit more expensive? As he?
Oh, look, I think. Well, I know for me, Will Graham's a little bit more of a priority, but I think it's going to come down to coaches and where they can get to and the cash. And if they need the cash, so what? Will Graham's probably about $100,000 more than Blake Drury.
$70K, yeah.
Yeah, so look, that might be the difference between the player that you want to get. I mean, I guess the other thing to consider with Blake Drury is it's probably a little bit of a score out of the bag, right? I'm not sure that to be perfectly honest, I didn't even notice where he was playing. Was he playing that kind of small forward role, or?
Well, I think that was the interesting part, because I think the Kirch injury changed things pretty drastically, because he put up a goal with 2 + 6s in the first quarter. And then after that, you start looking at his heat map, and he's definitely playing around the ground. I think at half time he was still on 30, and then he was just racking up on the wing and somewhat half back, which I think was part of the changes with the McKercher injury. So I don't know that he plays there each and every week, and I don't know that he's locked into the best 22. So I'd be doing the tried and tested Will Graham, but it is another negative 20-ish break even. So
yeah. So, Jake, that question that I kind of had at the start of this game, like in terms of, do we think that Fish is going to get some benefit out of McKercher's injury? What do you think there?
Yeah, I think the third quarter is the perfect answer to that. You look at Sheasel, 30 points, Drury, 30 points, Nyon, 30 points, Tucker, 30 points, Fisher, 29 points. If they're playing that kind of role and that kind of game style, which North will be stuck doing, there's definitely plenty of benefit out there. Obviously, we get to see what McKercher's looks like, but I guess there's no guarantee to say that Fish doesn't keep playing the same role he does, and now they slide Drury into that role. But there's also no justification to say that Drury even plays there next week or even plays in the side. It is, I don't know that Nyon, he looked all right, but then he turned over a couple of times. Absolutely poor, like a deplorable kind of disposal. So, if I was Alistair Clarkson, I couldn't tell you what I was going to do on any next week, let alone someone who's a bit far removed from it. So I hope, but I don't think anyone can give any guarantees.
Might turn out to be one of those kind of trades when what we're looking at, was it Harvey Gallagher and Harvey Thomas, where like you can kind of get to, a Will Graham, or, you might have to take a haircut and go to a Blake Drury and then just kind of fingers crossed and see how it pans out.
Just to jump in there, sorry.
Final part, just going to say...
Sorry, a different question up. Because it's a bit of a unique situation where we have so many rookies that are in the negatives this week. I think Drury's negative 29, and obviously Graham's around that mark as well. Would you consider a double downgrade because it is best 18? Could you take the hit just to give your cash generation a bump if you're lacking in that area?
I think it's a play, especially with the fact we'll get Bonner, Nick Martin. We'll have said McKercher, but like Roberts, all those guys are going to get DPP the week after, and even Sanders if we keep and he puts up a good score. So I think could be a play if you're in that spot.
Yeah, I think it's always a play. But what I would say is, if you're in a position like myself, you can move a Campbell and McKercher to get an upgrade, and you're getting a rookie off field. So if you can get a rookie off field a week before everyone else, if everyone else is going to downgrade, I'd still be leaning towards that option. But in the same vein, if you've only got 6'10", 6'20", and you can't get to anyone you like, then yeah, you're better off double downgrade.
Yeah, team value is probably a good thing to consider here, and how that rookie bench is, or how that bench is looking. I mean, you need some pretty decent health to get cash gen going. I mean, we're only we're not even at round 6, right? So it's still a very long way to go in the season. So, yeah, look, I'm always of the opinion that you should kind of never double downgrade unless you really, really have to. But there might be some coaches that are sitting there. But, I mean, do you really want to double downgrade into a Drury? I mean, do we really think he's that much of a must-get that you want to get on him?
I want to watch another week personally, just because look, like last year he went from scoring at 70 on debut, and then he got like I think it was 16 the next.
I think
week.
you got to be thinking like Jake. Like, I mean, particularly in these best 18, you want ceiling scores. If you can get off, 2 rookie players onto a decent player, a ceiling player, and get them on ground a week before everyone else, then you're going to be, I think, advantaged. But look, but different coaches are going to be in different positions.
Yeah, exactly. And then Darren, just in one sentence, final player, Tom Powell, 113. Is it too late to jump on him still?
Oh, it's a tough one because he's scoring as a top 6 forward, isn't he? So priced at 742 now, still a break even of 51. Got Hawthorn next week. It's a tricky one. If you can't get up to a Flanders or a Zorko or one of those sort of likes, then yeah, definitely jump on him. He's probably 100k cheaper than those guys. But yeah, you definitely haven't got the benefit that the rest of the coaches have, where we've jumped on him 3-4 weeks ago now. So, yeah.
No, it's not too late. No, yeah. I'm just not too late in the slightest. I reckon he's still 15 points underpriced at this stage, based on what we've just seen from him. Yeah, it sucks that you missed him, but don't compound the issue. If you can afford him and you've got 750k and that's who you can get to, don't second guess it. Just grab him.
Beautiful, Tim. We'll move on to the final game.
The Eagles, yes. West Coast defeated Richmond by 39 points at Optus Stadium. So Callum Jamieson was a late change with a hamstring complaint, was replaced by Witho. And then, of course, Edwards was concussed and replaced in the second quarter by Ryan Marich. And Jaden Short had a calf strain or something along those lines in the second quarter and was replaced by Tyler Sonson.
Yeah. Well, the 0.3% of the comp would have been very happy with Jake Waterman. That's only coach only in classic. So 148 was massive. That was a good, great game from Jake Waterman there. Lafau, I think that's how you say his name. 99, looked really good. I don't know what his price is. I don't know if anyone's got it up there. I don't know if he's still cheap enough to really look at it as an option. But
26.
You could consider it.
Buy this week. Wait a week.
Sorry, of course. Yeah, I forgot they're on buy. So anyway, disregard. Maybe look at him the week after. Elliot Yeo, 94. He just continues to look good every game. Quite last quarter, but look really good. So is there anything to worry about? I don't know if you saw that tackle. Is there anything to worry about there?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either,
Head didn't hit the ground. It was one motion. It wasn't 2 motions. I think he's fine.
Yeah, I agree. Liam Duggan, 84. Bit quiet in the last few weeks, but he'll be fine. He's looked pretty good so far this season. Dusty with just a 66. Quite gum. I just don't know if he's an option unless you're DC. And DC can bring him in. I'm sure he's
FIFO though, right? Isn't he 1 week on, 1 week off? Something like
that. That's funny. A few other players here. Seth Campbell, just a 47. I think, Jake, you mentioned obviously you're trading him this week. I think it's probably a good week to move him on. He's done some good cash gen, but can trade him. Kane McAuliffe, only the 38. Not quite enough for us to look at him post his buy as a rookie option. But a couple of players want to chat about. Harley Reid, 81, Tim, as an Eagles fan. Obviously, you're loving what you're seeing there. But the fantasy scores are back-to-back weeks now of pretty good scores. Is he a guy that you're pretty happy to put there at F6 for the time being?
I think I'd probably prefer like an Ollie Dempsey at F6, just a little bit more consistency. He had a bit of a quiet first quarter as well, kind of got going just late in that quarter. But look, I think he can be a bit up and down, but he does seem to be getting a little bit more of a role in the team and looks to be getting a little bit more match fit, seems to be able to run out of game a little bit better. So look, I'm happy to still be holding him. Not necessarily sure you want to be running him on field, but I think you can always hide behind the best 18, particularly for this week coming anyway.
Yep. And then Darren, I'll go to you for this one as well. 2 Richmond forwards, Shai Bolton and Liam Baker, obviously on bye this week, both of them. But are you looking at either of those guys?
Baker's definitely on the watch list. He's been pretty good. I'm not 200% sure on his CBAs, but obviously with Taranto, Hopper, and Presti out, he's getting a pretty good nick in there. So
he had the most most CBAs of Richmond mids. Him and Thompson Dow had 18 apiece. Bolton had 17, Graham 15, and had 13.
Definitely has the role. Can't remember off the top of my head what the injuries are like for the other 3, the main 3. So depending on when they're sort of coming back, it could be a very short-term play for sure. They're quite cheap. Then they can put up a ceiling score as they show.
Yeah, both looking very good at the moment. Beautiful, Tim. I think that's all the games wrapped up.
Awesome. All right. Well, why don't we turn our attention to some questions? I mean, I threw a couple of questions in there right to start. So while you're sorting through the questions, why don't we start with those ones? So Xavier Dersma from Essendon, what is he priced at? 671. I'm not sure. What is he? I think he's basically turned up the last 3 games or gone pretty close to it. Darren, Jake, thoughts?
I see Darren thinking there. So I've actually got Durs in a handful of draft leagues, and I certainly like it and I've enjoyed watching it. But I think the reality is we know how versatile and it's not the word I was looking for, actually, volatile the wing role is for any team, and he's still playing pure wing. Pretty well all of his touches are out there. Yes, there's been some massive upticks, but I just think that there could easily be a week where he drops a 40 or a 50. Just not the right kind of guy in a classic mold, and also an awkward price as well, unfortunately.
Awkward price.
What was the other player that you were looking at that price?
So not a huge fan from my point of view.
Yeah. What was the other player that was Rankin, wasn't it, that you were considering around that price, wasn't it?
The thing is, because you can hide behind Rankin and a Caldwell as an example, who could very easily be pushing top 10 in their line. Dersma's, without knowing and checking the numbers, is probably sitting at 40 or 50th as a midfielder. So,
yeah. Well, Caldwell at 704k, Jake. Obviously, a bit of interest there from yourself.
Yeah, definitely a bit of interest. I think the Setterfield kind of timeline is probably the one intriguing part. That's probably the only real flag. The role looks great. The last 2 weeks has been really good. I think they've said 2 to 3 for Setterfield. So I'm just not sure how sustainable it is outside of that. But we've seen it from him in the past when he's in the right role. And he's got the right role at the moment. So good price. But I'm running Jackson. So I'm just not sure about having a couple of guys with semi-expiring timelines. But yeah, I can't knock it.
Yeah. Tim, you put in the obviously comments about Sam Walsh.
Yeah.
Did you want a bit more of a chat?
Yeah, look, I just wanted to ask the boys whether they think he's going to be the number 1 trade target this week.
Yeah, I definitely think so. When you put up a 145, yeah, it's hard to miss him. And he's at a beautiful price, under 900k. I think the run for Carlton isn't the greatest, but look, we've known what Sam Walsh can do when he's fully fit. It's just that's the only concern. Is he fully fit? He looked good on the weekend. He just needs to put it together. So I'm probably watching for another week.
Yeah, so he's got GWS at Marvel, Geelong at MCG, Collingwood MCG, Melbourne MCG. So I guess the good thing is he's part at the G for 3 of those games and Marvel the other one.
Yeah,
so,
no flying to impact his back. I know how my back feels after a flight. So hopefully they're looking after him there. My only flag with the biggest trade target is just his price. I think a lot of people with the McKercher out probably going to be finding a struggle to get to him. I think he should be up there, but I'm just not sure a lot of people are going to be able to afford him, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I mean, I had 150,000k in 150,000k,
Jesus,
grand. I know that would have been nice, wouldn't it? 150k in the bank, so that's what enables me to get there. But yeah, I think you're right. There's going to be some people struggling with a bit of cash, aren't they?
Yeah. Question here comes from Bails DT on Twitter. He's got a question, Darren. So Massimo against North Melbourne and Sanders. Who are you trading at first?
Say again, who was that? Massimo.
Massimo against North Melbourne, and then Sanders with the risk of being subs. Who are you trading first?
Tough one, because I think, like I said off the top, I think Sanders can still hit his break even. It's 50 against St Kilda, whereas I think Massimo, he's been stuck on the wrong wing for 3 weeks back in a row. So I don't know if that's going to break anytime soon. Break even of 78. He's definitely in my plans to go this week, no matter the good matchup. So, and he's got more cash on his head, right? So that probably gets you up to that next player that you're looking for, like a Walsh or a Flanders or whoever you're looking for. So, yeah, I think the extra cash.
I think the other thing to consider is the only reason why Sanders scored poorly this week is because he was subbed, right? Like if he's going to get a full game, and it's probably you'd think it's another 3 or 4, maybe another 3 games or something like that till he gets another sub. So you'd think he's probably got a better chance of scoring higher than bloody Mass does at the moment. That's certainly how I feel.
Yeah. Yep, I was thinking along the same lines, just so I put it out there as well. We've got a question from Chris. Jake, he says, Massimo to Dacos or Roberts to Walsh?
It's Massimo to Dacos, hands down. Walsh is great, sure, but Roberts has still got cash to make. He's looking really good. Mass needs to go out of your side. He's losing cash, and Dacos will be top 6. So, yeah, no argument.
one thing I'll just sort of ask you about Dacos is he's actually got Port this week. Willem Drew, I expect to go to him. Then he's got the Bombers, who Durham just tagged Bond, and then he's got Carlton, who've got Hewitt. So is that a risk, or do you think that's just Dacos? It's just a risk every week?
I mean, you can argue that it is, but I still just don't. I don't know that they necessarily are putting that much attention on him. I don't think he's needed to this year. I don't think his impact, his disposals are still there, but his impact has been a little bit less, I personally believe. I'm not as worried about it, to be 100% honest.
Yeah. A few people ask this question, Tim. Dacos or Walsh? Who are you going if you're picking between the two?
Yes, I've got this exact decision to make this week. So for me, it will be Walsh, and that's because I'm a little bit concerned about the matchup that Dacos has got this week.
Yeah. Boys, what are you looking at? Jake, go first,
Yeah,
and then Darren.
I think it probably goes back to that last question. It depends who you're using. If you're using the same player, go to Walsh. I think he's cheaper. Stack that midfield out when you've got 3 or 4 defenders who are probably going to going into your defensive line in the next week. You're going to have stacks of defenders, so you probably don't need to add another one. But in saying that, if the difference is Massimo and you're going to be bringing Dacos or you're moving Roberts and you're moving Dacos into your midfield, well, then go for your midfielder. That's probably the main issue I have with Dacos there.
Yeah, I echo everything that Jake just said there. It's probably not the right time to bring in a midfielder for me still. Just the way my team structure is, I'm still running those 3 rookies on field. Bringing a midfielder in means that then obviously one of them missed the cut for that 1 week. So definitely still wanting to bring in a forward to assure up those couple rookies in there.
Yeah. Corey Blackledge got this question. Should I double downgrade this week or look at a Lukosius or a Caldwell, Tim? What are your thoughts on that one? Obviously, we had a little bit of that discussion before.
I mean, A, I don't like double downgrading. B, I don't like the options we've got. Look, I think you want to be getting onto a Will Graham, but I'm not convinced by a Blake Drury. Look, let me throw this to either Daz or Jake. What do you guys think about Caldwell? Bringing in Caldwell as one of that option?
Nah, lock it in. If you're getting a rookie off field, you're going from 4 to 3 or 5 to 4. You're getting a jump on the rest of the competition. Lukosius, Caldwell, both good options in my opinion. I don't love the double downgrade unless you absolutely have to. And I think those guys are good enough and could easily push that top 10. Well, maybe not easily. They could push that top 10. And therefore, it's enough of a worthwhile play.
Both for me are very risky because obviously Caldwell was still 4th in line for CBAs. With Setterfield coming back in, say, 1 or 2 weeks, does he then get pushed back to that sort of half-forward wing that he was playing? And we also saw what he can score there. But at the same time, Lukosius, he's going to Darwin in the next couple of weeks, and we know how Dewey it can be over there, and that doesn't suit his game style where he likes to take those intercept possessions. So, yeah, it's a very risky pick for me, but if you get, like I said, if you get a rookie off the field, it can definitely serve as a pretty good score on your field.
Yeah. We got Mick Hartz. He's asking about Caldwell, but he also said about Brad Hill as an option as a forward, averaging 90 back-to-back tons. Obviously, that massive score. Is anyone actually looking at Brad Hill?
Points chasing.
Silence as
I
a
don't
no.
know when Mason Wood's. Yeah, I don't know when Mason Wood's back, but that's just points chasing for me. Couldn't do it.
Agreed.
Yeah. I'll go a couple more questions here, then we will wrap up. So I'll go. So Tim actually put one in the comments here. So will Sanders get DPP? So Jake's probably the one here. Any idea roughly? I know you don't know the exact numbers.
I honestly don't. I didn't see the stats from Friday night. I know he was teetering on the edge prior to that game. Obviously, then being subbed out a little bit early, probably lost a little bit of that time as an option. His disposals were definitely in the midfield, but I didn't see where his starting positions were. So he'd be close, but I probably think he's less likely than likely from what I saw on Friday anyway.
Yeah, so I'm just having a look at the CBAs from the first half. So in the first quarter, there was 10. Sanders only had the 3 from 64% time on ground. And then the second quarter, there was another 5. There was 6, and Sanders had 3. So, and then obviously he was subbed out in the third quarter, so didn't have any CBAs.
It's going to be close. We might have to pay attention to Jaden's posts.
Yeah, definitely going to be very close there. What do we got? Angus Heasley can afford any premium this week. Who would you target as best value, Darren? Is it getting Walsh down at that cheap price, or do you maybe like
definitely be looking at Walsh? I think, he presents the value. Just as long as it works for your team structure, it's the main thing. Other than that, I haven't had too much of a look. There's obviously Lukosius, he's cheap. Caldwell, if you want to go that way. Or you try and go up to that top six defender or forward. That's my advice.
Yeah.
I think it's only fitting that I do it. Let's not forget Errol Gulden too. I think there's a shout there. I don't know that I'd be doing it, which is unsurprising because I didn't do it at all last year. But I think he deserves his name to be in the conversation there.
Every time I hear Errol Gulden, Jake, you say Errol Gulden, I just think Samson Ryan. It's just all I can think.
There's a clear correlation.
Yeah. We'll go 2 more questions here. So Sam's asking his thoughts on these trades, Tim. So he said McKercher to Graham and Fife to Saligo, leaving Coin the bank for a big upgrade next week. What are your thoughts on Saligo as one of the main mids at the Crows?
Oh, well, I'm interested to know how much coin he's got in the bank, and I think you could probably go up higher. But, I mean, I don't mind the trade, but I think you should be aiming a bit higher, that's all. And especially if he's got spare cash. Who else could you be getting to? How much is Saligo?
600k.
96 or something.
596.
Yeah, 596. So, I guess you might not have too much, but I mean, maybe there's some of those players that we're talking about in that kind of 600, that 700k mark. Who are we talking about? We're talking about Rochelle. We're talking about
Rankin, Lukosius.
Was just over.
Yeah. I don't know. What do you think, Bales? You're the Adelaide man.
He looked good, but he had 28 disposals and only scored a 70-odd. So for me, I don't know if he's going to have a consistent high floor to be an option to make considerable cash for us. So I'm probably not looking at Saligo. As good as he's looked, draft play definitely, but classic, I'm not as sure.
Again, he's a mid-only. He's not going to get anywhere near top of his line. At least if you move to 600k forward, you've got the potential that they could stay there for a lot longer.
Yeah, no, very good point there. Final question I'll go is from, I've lost it. Where's it gone? So James said, what are your trades this week? So I guess we'll just quickly fly around the room. Early trades. So Darren, early trade thoughts?
Definitely moving on McKercher to Graham. Obviously didn't pick him up last week, so that's a pretty simple one. Thanks me, 282k. And unfortunately about 2k off from getting a Massimo to Flanders, and about 14k from getting Walsh as well. So I've got to find an alternate way to get one of those guys in, I think.
Jake?
Oh, that's tough, Daz. Good luck. Let me know how you go, actually, with your trades. I'm very similar. First trade, McKercher to Graham, lock that one away. The 2 options are I can move a Zach Williams on to kind of a 750 kind of K forward. So there's a few options there, whether that's Caldwell, Rankin. But at the moment, can't get Seth Campbell up to those guys, but I can get him up to Lukosius. So it's pivoted during the show here, and it's Seth Campbell to Lukosius at the moment and get the rookie off field.
Yeah. Tim?
Well, firstly, for Daz, mate, if you're looking at ways to learn how to make money, you should head across to infinitewealth.com.au/AFL Fantasy.
Of course. Get on.
But no, for me, Massimo down to Will Graham, like I said, 849k in the bank from last week, which will allow me go McKercher up to Sam Walsh and leaving me with exactly $0 in the bank. So I'm pretty happy with that trade for this week. So that'll be me, Bales. What about you?
Yeah. So I was originally looking at McKercher down to Graham and Sanders up to Walsh because I got the cash to make that move. But I might go Massimo instead and play Closey on field for the week this week. It is against Sydney, though, so I'm sort of going, do I go not Sharp, would be Sanders and Massimo on field, or would be Closey and whoever I bring in? So it's a one to look at, but Walsh is coming in for me this week, or potentially Dacos, and definitely Will Graham. So that's what I'm looking at. But Tim, that is the questions, and I think we'll wrap up.
Excellent. Well, firstly, Daz, mate, I know you've been doing some content. Why don't you tell the people what you're doing, where you're doing it, and so they can come along and give a follow and jump on board.
Sure. I'm not really good at this sort of stuff, but yeah, you can find me at Wise Ocean Pods on YouTube or Twitter. Really just giving sort of my advice on who I think are good options to bring into your team each and every week. Put 2 videos out each week, which are about an hour each. So hopefully they're a good listen and can give some people good advice.
Well, mate, if people out there are listening to us two morons, then they should probably get on and listen to you because you've got much better credentials than we've got. But
links will be for that in the podcast description and the YouTube description, along with HatChat links and Jake's links, which you'll go through.
Anything you want to shout out, Jake?
Nah, yeah, I'm sure that if anyone's listening to me for advice, they've probably switched off by now because they know that I haven't had the best start. But I like to think the advice is usually good. It's the decisions that are poor. So yeah, obviously, me and the boys at HatChat, I'll be missing this week's pod. You guys get me, and the HatChat boys don't. So I'm sure I'll hear about it in the group chats over the next couple of days. I'm traveling a little bit this week, but Dunkley's Donuts on Twitter. I try to get back to people if they tweet me. So good luck to everyone out there, and try to keep inside these Jake ranks as they keep closing in on the top 100.
Awesome. Well, look, go on, Buzz.
I was going to say, if you're in Adelaide this week, make sure you head down to the DT Talk Live show at the Archibald. I'll be there. Jake will be there. And Darren will be there as well. So make sure you guys come and say hello. Lady will be there as well. So you better believe
the awesome. Us three and Lady.
There'll be plenty of masturbating going on for sure. All right. Thanks to everyone for joining us. And, of course, massive special thanks to those that are joining us live. We've been getting a few hundred people joining us live on both YouTube and Twitter the last few weeks. Is just really great to see. And, of course, thanks to those who sent in questions. Of course, during the week, you can send in your questions to us on X. And please give us a follow at AFL Fantasy Fans. And don't forget to tune in live each week after the final siren round on X and YouTube for our round review, along with Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard or 4 p.m. Western Standard for our pre-lockout chats. Finally, you can listen to these spaces on the AFL Fantasy Fanatics podcast. Wherever you get your podcasts, please subscribe to the pod and give us a 5-star rating and review, guys. Rage trade away. Best luck with your research this week, and we'll catch you again at the same time next week. Thanks a lot, and bye for now.
See ya.
Thanks, boys.